We have a pretty simplistic rate structure. Everybody's a Power Platform functional consultant or a Power Platform dev. That's what you are. And then depending on the role and your experience, and you may be doing some client management on a job, you may be doing some, team leadership on a job. But with the exception of directors, it's pretty flat. But part of that career progression means you need to continue to bring people in at the entry level to your company because you've got a 3-tier rate structure. And if everybody, as you said, is at the top tier rate, you're not very price competitive.
Today, I'm learning from Bob Bell, an expert in business administration and the CEO of a boutique technology services firm, ITK Consulting in Canada. Bob shares how his superpower lies in his attention to administrative details, a skill that allows his team to focus on the essential work like sales and delivery. We explore how Bob prioritizes tasks, his strategies for keeping overhead costs lean, and his philosophy on balancing employee and subcontractor roles. Bob also discusses the critical decision of when to bring expertise in-house and how his firm approaches talent acquisition and HR functions, aiming to build a robust, dynamic delivery team. This episode is packed with valuable insights for leaders navigating the complexities of small to mid-size business growth and looking to foster a culture of efficiency and collaboration. Join us as we uncover these practices with Bob Bell from ITK Consulting. So Bob, you've told me one of your superpowers is that you're strangely fond of all things administrative. Tell us what that means.
I actually have an overstimulated attention to detail. So I get bored easy. So I enjoy dabbling in all things that's required to kind of run a business, run operations, whether that be finance and accounting, legal affairs, human resources, all of those things. And as a CEO for like a boutique professional services firm, I try to limit our overhead costs.
Right.
And I've been able to do all of those things to a certain degree of detail to ensure that we have good coverage, and it keeps me active. So someone says we need to review this 50-page legal document. I actually don't mind doing it, and I will read 50 pages of legalese. So over the years, indeed.
So you leave the rest of the team to focus on, I guess, marketing, sales, delivery.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. We have a sales director who does all of our kind of outward facing stuff. I expect from our business, our consultants to sell. I think it's part of their job. Right. Again, and it's not so much that I'm looking for someone out there, shaking hands and kissing babies and writing proposals, but they have the best opportunity when you're at a client to be able to identify new opportunities, new things that might come up in what, the old coffee, water cooler chats, things like that. Right. Yeah. So that is an expectation. You don't have to write a proposal, but I do expect you to say, hey, in a discussion earlier today, I heard they were thinking about this, and then allow the rest of the group. And if you're comfortable with it, take it to the next level, but not everybody's comfortable with that. Right. But so other than kind of the sales, we don't really do a lot of marketing, to be honest. Right. Our delivery has taken care of that. And we've been very fortunate.
That's amazing.
Where we've got good word of mouth, from folks, as far as, follow on work. And then the delivery, I've got some great people that are fantastic technologists and mechanics that can do all the solutioning. So the last thing they need is me working my way into that. So I stay out.
So whenever you're dealing with everything else, there can be quite a lot of tasks. It's hard to know which one to focus on. You've got, you want to prepare a new edition of the employee handbook. You need to write a new onboarding process. Somebody sends you an RFP with a set of terms and conditions that you need to read through. How do you prioritize all those tasks and know which one to focus on next?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think, again, as a smaller service delivery organization, client first. I remember learning from a mentor from a long time ago about, it's interesting if you could open up, again, we have to think back. If you open up your filing cabinet next to your desk, what do you see in your top drawer, right? Do you see a bunch of folders about legals and employment contracts and this, or what you should see is a bunch of stuff about your clients and their issues and things like that. Yeah. So I tend to focus on client first and then work backwards from there. So client first stuff, project team next. Everything we do is about the project team, and that's people's first point of responsibility. Yep. And then down to the individual, themselves. Because again, as a professional services business, all of our value is in our people. We don't have a warehouse full of widgets that we sell. In the old vernacular, 95% of our net worth walks out the door at 5 o'clock, right?
Right.
When people turn off their computers, that's it for the day kind of thing. So
yeah, I tell our customers, we've got a warehouse full of timesheets. How many
Yes.
would you like filled in?
Exactly.
I carry out a similar role at Superware. You know, I try and take on most of the HR, the finance, the operations, and I'm not an expert at any of those. And I sometimes just run out of sheer talent. And I have to get, we've got a pretty good law firm, for example. I just give them a call. We've got a membership subscription with them. I tell them what the issue is. Here's what we need. And they give us a fixed price quote for a contract review or preparation of a legal document or something. How do you know when to bring in an expert? Because, you don't want to get your taxes stuffed up because you tried to do it yourself or get into a legal minefield. How do you know when to find in an expert?
I think for me, it's always about, I'll say being authentic. From a leadership perspective, I think you need to be authentic and you need to be honest with yourself, right? As to what you can and cannot do. That comes with time. I think by nature, we're all probably pretty self-confident type A people and this is what we want to do, but you need to be able to look in the mirror and say, this is not, I'm out of my depth. That said, I think it's important to be able to take it right to that level. So I'm confident that I know enough to at least you need to be able to know enough to know when there's a problem. You don't necessarily have to know the solution. You don't necessarily, and I don't expect it. We've got a great lawyer who does stuff. We've got a great bookkeeper who does all these things. We've got a great accountant who does stuff, but I use them to do what they should be doing as professionals. They don't need to be doing a lot of the busy work, a lot of the the prep work, a lot of the reading through like a 50-page agreement and say, hey, there are these 2 clauses that I don't like. I think we're exposed. How would you suggest we change the wording, right? So I think it's more knowing what you know and as important, knowing what you don't. And that's a big thing, right? Because that's often what we do with our clients too, right? Where a lot of times clients come and say, this is my problem. And I'm not convinced that it actually is a problem all the time. It's a symptom. Yep. This is happening, and there's maybe other ways that other things that they should look at, but trying to kind of get that angle, and trying to get them to focus on what the true issue is. And I think that's the kind of secret sauce. It's kind of knowing, taking yourselves up to that limit and then say, I got to have people surrounding me who are professionals, and I just want them to do what they do, not all the other stuff. Because that's where the fees go up, right? When you start to see billable times and a lawyer should spend 2 hours, not 10, because they have to read through everything and do this. Nope. And that comes with relationships too, right? We've been very fortunate that you build the relationships. So the lawyer that we deal with knows this is what my expectation is. This is what I need. I don't want you to look at anything else. I just want you to answer this, right? And then I'll take it to the next level, right? And that creates some trust. Good. And you gotta have some trust with the people you have that arm's length relationship with. But get professionals doing what professionals do. Don't try to be your, what's the old saying about the person with the worst shoes or the cobbler's kids.
Do you think you'll get to a certain size we start to bring some of those functions in-house and have like full-time roles for some administrative team members? Or are you just going to try and keep it, run it lean, invest in delivery folks rather than admin?
That's a good question. I've had experience I ran HealthLink BC, which was the telehealth service in the province. So had over 400 telenurses and dietitians and pharmacists and all that kind of stuff doing work. And we had a 110 person consultancy that I ran, a privately held one again, that I built up and ran. And there's a certain level I think I would like to take it to. And then beyond that, I think I don't want to go any bigger than that. So that kind of 45 person, 50 person is probably as big as certainly in my career that I'd want to take ITK to. Okay. And Doug McLaughlin, my primary business partner and I both have that same kind of perspective. But I think it's really a matter of, there's a couple of things where I think you have to get more mature. One of the things that we did recently, we brought in a great guy to do he's our talent lead acquisition, right, to go out and do recruiting. We did recruiting kind of off the side of our desk, and it wasn't good enough. It was fine when you're 10 people. It wasn't good enough when you're 25 growing and having to staff big projects. So he's brought a lot of, and what I wanted him to bring is a lot of formality in a good way, a lot of structure, repeatable things. So I think some things like that are good, but I don't think you need as much as people. I think it's a crutch sometimes to say, oh, I've got a legal person department now. I've got this, and it's an expensive crutch. So
yeah. I'm keen to dive into that HR and talent function a little bit more, because I had the same recommendation from Kieran at The Factor, one of the Australian partners that we work with. And he said the same thing. The first kind of in-house team member they brought in that he had been using an outside contractor for was an HR and kind of people operations part of his business. And he said it was the best move ever.
Yeah.
He's now got somebody permanently doing recruiting. And even if they're not actively recruiting, they're just, keep catching up with candidates, finding out what they're looking for, so that when there is an opening, they're ready to go. They've got a pool of warm candidates.
Exactly.
I'm dreaming about bringing on somebody to do the same thing for us. When do you think is the right stage to do that? How big was ITK when you hired a talent manager?
So we would have been kind of 20 people as a focus, but it was interesting in talking about this role with the rest of the management team and saying that we weren't able to be as responsive as I would like to be. And frankly, I was the person who was coordinating all of this, and I was doing the fit interviews and all that, because again, I don't really, to be honest, I don't get very much into people's resumes at all. I expect the team that we have, who are much smarter than me and all this stuff, to be able to know whether someone is telling the truth about their skill set and what they do and how they approach things. For me, it was all about the fit, right? And I want to know about the fit, because with a small company, one bad apple can definitely spoil the bin, right? So, we've been very fortunate that way. But for me, one of the things that I said to this particular individual when we were recruiting is, look, because they had a great question saying, well, what does success look like? And I said, well, frankly, you could hire one person in the next 8 months, or you could hire 5 people, and both would be a success.
Wow.
Because it depends on what we need to, what we need to bring in to resource our projects. Mm-hmm. But I want to build up a talent pool of people that we could call on should something drop. Because as you know, in this business, things can drop and you're like, we need 5 people like next week.
Yep. I'm hoping for one of those tomorrow, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. But you also have to balance, we've got the recurring expense when we bring someone on board, right? So what I suggested as far as putting together this person's, next year, what it should look like, I said, there's that side of it. But then there's also all the other soft things that I'd like this person to take care of. So things like, formalizing our annual performance review process.
Yes.
Putting in repeatable procedures so people know every year that this is the kind of process they're going to go through. Career path planning for folks, right? It's important for us, again, as I mentioned, they are our asset. So how do we invest in them? How can people see their career at ITK expanding and growing? And frankly, I don't know what the end point is. It's up to the individual, right? Some people plateau and they're perfectly happy there, and that's great. Other people are very driven and they want to, go on to the next thing, and, help us put that together. Help us put together I was part of, when I was in grad school a long time ago, I was part of a co-op program, and it was fantastic for me. I didn't like book learning. I didn't like lectures. I wanted to learn by doing. So all of a sudden to be able to go to, for 4 months and work at a business and learn how they do things and how it applies, and apply all the, the kind of principles I learned into something was super valuable. So one of their things is establish an intern program at ITK. And so create relationships with the universities and colleges in the area, and get our name known. So there's a lot more than just the talent acquisition, talent part of it. It's everything that goes around that. Creating a formal employee handbook. Again, we had stuff in notes and
I've got all various.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, now make this something that's repeatable and someone can look back at. And so,
we've got a SharePoint drive with different folders and documents stuffed in it, and like a policy here and a procedure over there. And I'm not sure anybody's got access to the SharePoint drive or not. It's one of my little projects coming up. Trying to find somebody though, who's like, that's 2 different sides of HR. Talent recruitment is quite different from HR operations. Have you found somebody who's got a good blend of both skills? That's pretty hard to find, about a thought.
We were quite fortunate. So again, this is when I was kind of responsible for recruiting. So we put out an ad on Indeed, pretty broad parameters. We talked about all the different things we were looking for. My God, I think I had over 150 applications. It was insane, and some really, really good candidates. But what I was looking for was more, again, first among equals. They needed to have some recruiting chops and had done this in the past, but they need to have a bent towards HR.
Okay.
So I wasn't interested in someone who was coming from one of the, I'll call them like, recruiting factories where, we would get resumes and someone say, in the last quarter, I hired 176 people. You may hire one person at ITK, right? That's not what I'm interested. I wasn't interested in that kind of factory, kind of turning through and going through formal process and checking boxes. I wanted someone who would take the time to get to know people, nurture a relationship, because maybe you're a contractor who has some great skills, but you're busy right now and you're not interested. We've pre-qualified you. So who knows, when you finish that contract, maybe you reach out and say, hey, I'm available. Is anything happening? Right. So I always wanted to be in a position, and we weren't. I wanted to be in a position where I had a talent pool that we could call on. So that was the first priority. But the other part was really, so you need to be able to, even if you haven't done it before, I'm less concerned if people have done a bunch of HR, then they are predisposed to HR, right?
Okay.
Because that wasn't the primary focus. I'll make sure we abide by all the legislation and all that kind of stuff. I just want someone who actually thinks it's kind of cool, and wants to do it, as well as do recruiting. So I think that was for us the big thing. I just had to have someone who at least, if you said HR, oh, that's not what I do. Well, I'm not looking for a pure specialist to recruit, because we're not looking at 100 people a month, right? So that's how we approached it.
I experimented maybe 6 months ago with a contractor. I think I got on Upwork, or like a VA agency.
Right.
And I said, look, here's a brief. Here's a pool of, we've got this little candidate database. There's 400 or 500 people in it. Most of us, we've got 6 co-founders. We've entered, friends and family in there, people that we know personally on our network. Reach out, keep them warm, let them know that we've got some upcoming projects, find out what they're interested in. And it didn't go well. Really? I don't, mostly my fault, not briefing her well enough. But then I started to get LinkedIn messages saying, hey, your recruiter told me that you were going to arrange a phone call and schedule an interview. I'm like, whoa, no, that wasn't the plan.
That wasn't the mandate. Yes.
No. And so I'm probably upsetting candidates, setting unreasonable expectations out in the market. And that backfired. So I'm a little bit burned by that experience. I probably won't do that again, but I love your idea of hiring a full-time team member, maybe just a part-time team member. Maybe it's 30 hours a week or 25 hours a week or something.
Yeah, they need some dedicated focus to you. To be honest, we initially thought, as I was looking at saying, we only need, 20 hours a week and that. And the more I thought about it, it was someone that I had actually mentored in the past and who was to become quite successful. And they actually said to me, you're crazy. Pay the extra money, get someone full-time to do this, have them there. They're always thinking, if they're good, they're always thinking about you, your success. How does this person that they meet or this person that they source, how do they fit with your mold? And then make sure that they cultivate that talent pool. And because that's what we're looking for. We have some fantastic long-term subcontractors that we've dealt with for, ITK was incorporated in 2010. So I think going back to 2012, we're still working with some of those people, and they're tremendous. Some people are better subcontractors than their employees. That's just how they're wired. And I got no problem with that. We've got a good mix, right? But we needed more people in both buckets, more potential subcontractors with some generalist as well as specific skill sets, and then more potential employees that we could turn to. And that was kind of the remit to the person is, hey, go out and start building this up. And I think they've done a very good job. And we're now a lot more, it's not more structured how we do it. So for instance, we just instituted, literally, we had a big post that just came down for a broad, cross section of, skill sets, as opposed to we're looking for a senior solutions architect, right? We went away from that kind of stuff and to look, I just want to know who's out there, has the skills in the Power Platform, wants to work with a smaller company and isn't interested in the big 5 kind of experience. And let's start talking to people. So there's been a bunch of discovery calls now. He's scheduled some technical, actually we're talking this morning, what should we call these things? Technical coffee chats. And I thought, well, that makes it sound a little light and not too serious. And so anyway, we're trying to figure all that stuff out, but he's going to preset into people's schedules. So again, when you're a delivery first organization, it's hard to make time. Yeah. And if you don't make time for it, guess what? You're not going to do it. And so now we just book in for each of our, senior managers. They've got kind of 4 hours a week they commit to. You have to commit to 4 hours where you could meet and talk to people and have a coffee, have a technical discussion to see if they've got the chops or not. Yep. And it's, we're only about 6 weeks into this, but it's starting to pay dividends that we're just seeing now kind of a constant evolution. There's the people new, we're seeing new talent each week as opposed to, oh dear Lord, we've got a proposal. We won. How do we resource it? Right. Without stressing our people.
We got some feedback from an opportunity we didn't win recently with a public sector agency that, we're a small business. They thought it was a big project. We didn't think it was that big, but it would have required 5 or 6 people to deliver it. And they thought we wouldn't have the capacity.
Right.
Yeah. And ironically, they went to kind of a national Microsoft partner who has laid off a number of people because they don't have the work right now. So they don't have the capacity either. It's just, I'd love to be able to confidently say, yes, we've always got capacity. And we can include that in our proposals. Look, here's what we do. Here's our process for ensuring that we always have capacity for more work. Here's our talent pipeline. And be able to sell that as part of our proposition so that clients can be confident that we're always ready to go.
Yeah, it's challenging because again, I'm a little on the older side, as you can tell by the hair. That I tell my daughters, they gave me this gray hair, so I earned my gray hair. It's challenging as a smaller firm, and some of the things that I think make us feel that we're attractive, that we are agile, which I know is a favorite word of yours. We're agile, yes. We're nimble, we're not cutting edge, but we're upfront with technology. We can move quickly. We can dedicate time and energy. You're not a little tiny client to us because as a big firm. But by the same token, that's all great. But then the other side is exactly what you were told. Well, we're just not sure you're big enough. We're just not sure you could scale to do this. And it's kind of like from, again, back in like the 90s, the saying would always be, no one gets fired for hiring IBM. Well, again, no one's going to get fired for hiring Accenture or Deloitte or whoever it could be. But again, as a smaller boutique firm, we bring a whole lot to the table that they won't. Because I've been part of those organizations and you know people in these organizations. They're fantastic. They're very successful. But it's different dealing with a smaller firm, right? Yeah. But there's risks. We have to understand as a buyer on the other side of the table, sure, there's risks. It's harder to go with a firm like yours and mine than it would be for a big firm because they'll say, well, national partners, they'll always be there for you. Well, you can talk to lots of clients who have had different experiences too on that front. So
I remember one customer in their RFP asked, what's the escalation path from delivery team up to the leadership of your organization? Like one of our co-founders is in the delivery team. If you've got an issue, talk to them. That's it.
Exactly.
There's nowhere else to go.
Exactly. Dial the number that's on page 17 of the contract. You'll get me.
Yeah. You mentioned you've got a blend of subcontract resources and employees. Is that a conscious decision that you've made to keep that blend? Do you have a strong preference to go one way or the other? What are the advantages to having subcontractors versus employees?
Yeah, definitely a conscious choice. I've been doing in professional services since 1990, a couple of forays into some other things throughout the career, but have always been a big believer in employees because I think it's important to build culture, build, the ITK way, whatever you want to call it. I think that's very important, and it's becoming more important with now a distributed workforce and remote, people being all remote. Sure. So always been a big believer in that. But by the same token, the bigger you build up that fixed cost base, the less able you are to surf markets and surf downtimes and that. And, I had been through times when I've had to do, big layoffs, and it's a horrible experience. I take it very personally. Yeah. I've always been the one to say, look, I will make the offers and I will be there if I have to rescind one and take someone out. And I don't want to do it ever again. So, we're very dedicated to our people. I always try to keep that, I'll call it maybe 70-30, 75-25 balance. And we've got some long-term subcontractors, like I said, who are fantastic and they do a great job. But at the end of the day, they're not on my balance sheet. Right. There's work to be done, and we've managed to keep lots of folks, very busy for a number of years and have a great relationship. Like they all come to our, retreats, our destination retreats that we do every year. We include our long-term subcontractors because they're essential to what we do. Yeah. But they also have that, there's also that, that other side that should something go wrong, I'm still going to be able to fall back on. And thankfully that hasn't happened at ITK, and I don't see that happening, going forward. But yes, conscious choice to provide some flexibility, conscious choice to ensure you can always have people with maybe some specific skill sets that you really can't use 100% of the time. Yeah. And again, I feel that if you bring someone on as an employee, you have a responsibility to them. And, I take it seriously, and I expect folks to be serious on the other side, have some loyalty to the company. But it's important to have that, I'll call it kind of that, ability to kind of, flex as well. So I'm a big fan.
You said, for example, long-term contractors join your annual retreats. Are there ways in which they do get treated differently? Do you do annual reviews with them? If you're paying for training for your team members, do you also pay for the subcontractors training, or does their kind of price premium in the market mean that they should actually invest in their own training? That's up to them to take care of. Right. How do you draw the line?
That's a good point. So yes, we do include them in things like all of our social events. Traditionally we've started about 3-4 years ago, I guess, doing a destination retreat each year where we take folks. We did Whistler.
I like the sound of that.
Lovely. We did Victoria, which is where I am from, on the island. Then we did Whistler again, and we kind of go up on a Thursday afternoon, We cover the 3 nights of hotels and accommodation stuff. We have a 1-day retreat so that we can write it off, where we do strategic planning on the Friday. And then really it's for people who can bring their significant others and have the Saturday, Sunday to themselves. So folks are included in that sort of stuff. There is an expectation that they come to like our monthly all hands meetings that we basically bring everybody together again over, most folks attend in person, but if others can't, and we've got a couple people in Ontario, who dial in for those, but those they attend. But the distinction would be things like, bonuses. We have an egalitarian bonus plan that we put in place that I'm a big fan of. Myself and Doug, who are the 2 majority owners, don't share in that. It's a fixed percentage of our net proceeds from operations, and it's paid out equally across the board. Doesn't matter whether you're a senior director or whether you're the new person on the ship after you've passed your 3-month probation. Yep. You participate in that. We're rolling out an RRSP plan, a matching plan. Again, that will only be provided to, to employees. Yeah. The training you mentioned, we predominantly, we always pay for the, training for employees. For some of our subs, depending on the need for a particular delivery, if we've put them in a position where they need this skill in order to do it and they don't have it, I would cover the cost. Right. But there's some distinctions like that. So some of the benefits, bonusing, you mentioned annual reviews. We do APRs with all of our employees. We don't do them with the subcontractors. So there's less focus on career path planning, that sort of stuff. But yeah, those are I would say the primary distinctions. But we've kind of blurred the lines on purpose, and it's served us well, to be honest.
Yeah. A lot of people go contracting because they don't enjoy that career planning annual review process, the bureaucracy of, working in a large organization, and they want to get out of it. So they sell themselves in business. And so, I'm the same. I don't ask people to go through that. If they want feedback, sure. We'll schedule.
Oh, sure. We'll definitely do feedback.
And walk through that. But none of our contractors have ever asked for that, but the offer is there.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
We're the same. We grew quite rapidly at the start with a couple of big projects. And we brought on some contractors to ramp up nice and quickly. And now we're beginning to try and hire more employees, more at the, early career folks, because we realize that with a bunch of contractors and a bunch of co-founders, our average, tenures, like 10 to 15 years of experience, that makes it an expensive team. Exactly. Not every client wants to shell out that kind of investment. So we needed to bring on more early career people. And we wouldn't do that with contractors. We don't want to hire contractors who's got years of experience.
Right.
I love your idea too of the internships, and we're looking at some apprenticeship programs and things to give people a taste of what we do. And hopefully we can, after they finish their study, they might consider coming in and joining us as well.
Right. And that's, as you said, that's important. One of the reasons why, we always are, looking for some new talent similar to you. We have a pretty simplistic rate structure, and how we do things. And I'm kind of anti-title, anti-hierarchy, just because you get that whole thing. You're a project manager 1, you're a project manager 2, you're a C. No, forget it. It's just everybody's a Power Platform functional consultant or a Power Platform dev. That's what you are. And then depending on the role and your experience, and you may be doing some client management on a job, you may be doing some, team leadership on a job, but with the exception of kind of, the kind of, directors, it's pretty flat. But part of that career progression means you need to continue to bring people in. I don't want to use the term bottom, but at the entry level to your company, because you've got a 3-tier rate structure. And if everybody, as you said, is at the top tier rate, you're not very price competitive. And frankly, people need to roll up their sleeves and do, whether it's testing or some of the other things, some of the, data migration stuff that maybe isn't that sexy, but it needs to be done. It's a great learning platform. Yep. I think that you need to continually allow people to grow, but you have to build up the bottom of the funnel or the entry level to your funnel so that you can continue to kind of grow talent. And that's why I wanted to look at the whole internship idea, because I thought it was fantastic for me many moons ago. And I'm assuming it's the same type of experience. And if I can get someone excited to join ITK as opposed to going down the big 5 route, that would be great, right? Yeah, cool. And grow with them.
I was reading the employee handbook from 37 Signals, the folks who developed Basecamp and those kind of applications. They've made their employee handbook public. You can go and read it.
That's kind of cool.
And I was fascinated to learn they have, I think, 5 levels in their delivery team. It's like a junior, mid-level, senior, lead, and principal. And it's roughly, you're expected to serve about 2 years and then achieve the next level. And there's kind of milestones you need to be able to prove that you've reached in order to get promoted. But they said everybody at the same level has the same compensation. In fact, they've taken it a step further because they're a completely distributed workforce. They pay you at the same rate regardless of your location. And they try and pay you the top 10% of the San Francisco rates for that role. Wow, okay. So I could live in Kenya or Nepal or, and earn a top 10% San Francisco compensation package. That would sound pretty good. How do you think about compensation in terms of having a very flat structure? Do you then have people on different compensation packages, even though they're the same or different levels?
So the answer, I guess, is yes. We try to be in kind of the 75th percentile. Again, we're a boutique firm. We're not going to be paying New York rates or anything like that. We try to be in the 75th percentile from an overall compensation perspective, within the Western Canada, BC marketplace. That's kind of where we aim to be. Again, because I'm not a fan of, I don't even like using the term senior, because when does that happen? Does that happen after 18 months? Does that happen after 3 years? Does it happen? And I'm a senior, you're a junior. No, it depends on people's path and what they do. So it really, to us, kind of boils down to there's a range based on skill sets, right? What people are good at. Client, being able to manage a client, has a certain value to it on top of the base skill set. Being able to, lead a project, being able to lead a project of 2 people versus being able to lead a project of 5 people. Those again are on top of being able to put your hands on the keyboard and do the work. So there is some variability within those levels, but we do not follow. And again, it's because I don't believe in it. We do not follow a kind of union structure, kind of after this many months, you go to this level, and after this, you go to this level. Because I think some people want to do that in their careers and want to keep moving forward and forward and forward. And other people are very successful and very capable, and they reach a level like, I like doing this. And that is brilliant. That's totally okay. There's a place for those folks in our organization, likely in yours as well. And that they shouldn't be penalized for that, right? So when it comes to, so that's at the kind of, we'll call it the annual salary level. The other things are very egalitarian. So our vacation allotment, the benefits package people get, the bonuses, they're all the same. Doesn't matter whether you're a senior director or you come in. Maybe a little different for junior people with respect to their vacation coming on board. Sometimes it's only 2 weeks or 3 weeks based on they're just coming out of school versus, we're a little different than in Europe. I mean, we kind of top out at 4 weeks vacation in North America. That's a lot. Where I realize in Europe, I get 7 weeks. Someone says 7 weeks. Good Lord. But that's more of a North American thing than anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's funny. Somebody coming out of school might have had 20 weeks vacation from school. No, they're coming in, starting work and getting 3. Oh,
exactly.
That's a hard landing. Well, Bob, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Give me some really good food for thought there around bringing on our first kind of HR talent management role, how we think about bringing people in, promoting them, and the use of subcontractors. That's been a fascinating discussion. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I appreciate the time, and thanks for the invite.
Bob, thanks for joining me on Practice Leading. I really appreciate it. I share a similar burden to you for getting all the administrative stuff done at Superpower so that our delivery team can get on with the most important job of building amazing apps for our customers. As I record this, I've just reviewed a mammoth set of contract documents for a multi-million-dollar project. I'm talking to insurance brokers about our next insurance renewal that's due next month. And I've upgraded our Microsoft Partner Benefits plan so the team can access Dynamics 365 contact center licenses. All that fun stuff. You give me a couple of takeaways to think about. In particular, hiring a talent manager. We've just made offers to 3 new principal consultants and engaged a recruiter to help us find 6 or 7 more team members over the next few months. Pretty soon, I think we can justify a part-time talent manager to help us establish better recruitment, onboarding, and management processes and ensure we follow them, and then help us with our next rounds of recruitment when we next need to expand. I love your advice in that area. Thanks for that, Bob. Balancing contractors and employees. I share a lot of your views on the value of bringing in contractors with specific skills and investing in the careers of employees in their training and bonuses over and above the benefits provided to contractors. Superpower needs to continue to find ways to make our business a great place for employees to build a long-term career, while at the same time engaging contractors when we need to and recognizing the differences between them and the differences in how they like to be compensated and engaged. Thanks so much, Bob, for joining me. There's a link to Bob's LinkedIn profile in the episode description. I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this practice leading episode and found it just as inspiring as I did. If you did, please consider sharing it with an up-and-coming leader in your network. They'll appreciate the recommendation, and word-of-mouth referrals are the best way we can grow the show. This helps us attract more amazing guest leaders and experts so that we can share their leadership lessons with you and we can all grow together. Until next time, keep experimenting.